So if somebody was touching the largest finger, you would know that what the information is coming from it's coming from a person's philosophy, their inlaid structure of things. Okay, so now if the person is holding their little finger, or if you notice that their little finger is out a little bit more like this, right? Person's accessing a creative energy, the sexual energy. On the right.
Some people do when they eat. And is that's
creative? Yes, and
creative?
Yes, sexual, creative. It's actually the very periphery of self. This is where energy changes. So more than likely the person's eating and feeling their procreative. Procreation is happening. You know, their ability to be able to have the energy to change state from a need of wanting satiation to being satiated, you know. So sometimes you'll notice that the person's, you know, they'll be holding a cup a little bit and holding this finger out, but, you know, they're satiating that creative aspect of themselves through the nutrients that they're taking in, you know, really blessing the temple, their body, with the food they're eating. But anyway, the main thing is that you see the little finger, you know, out more from the outer fingers. The person's accessing a creative energy, a sexual creative energy, and that this right hand is their expressive self, more the yang aspect of ourselves, the masculine aspect of ourselves. Whereas if the left little finger was out, okay, if the left little finger was out, that would be an indication of the yin, the feminine aspect of self, nurturing aspect of self, involving sexual creative self. Okay. So now you could get even more, you know, hand calibration. If the person's holding their a finger down more at the base of the finger, it's involving more kinesthetic sequencing. Halfway up, it's involving auditory, and then all the way to the very periphery of the finger is involving more visual system. So the more distal the limb, the more away from the body centre, the more you're going into a visual mode. The more that you're travelling further in, the more you're going into a kinesthetic mode. Okay, there's much more that you can do with hand calibration as well, and maybe we'll do some more at some point.
What specifically do you mean by calibration?
Calibration is the ability to map across function. So for instance, you can see something happening on the outside and understand what it's connected to inside. That's calibration. That's what calibration is. Okay. Okay, so maybe this session can also be something, you know, that you've read that you think is really excellent. Something you want to highlight. Okay, so who's next?
In talking about the stuck states, like it says what neuro-linguistic programming has done is give us the information that when people are in a stuck state, they may be looping over sense.
Yeah.
If someone, like in talking, is saying, you know, on this side means this and on this side means this, and if that person, in order to understand which is which, has to actually turn around and say, okay, this is right, this is left. What is that a feeling? Is that a kinesthetic stuck state or a visual?
Oh, okay. All right. First thing is turn around. Okay, so it's involving vestibular system. To turn and around is involving vestibular system. It's involving a whole body movement through space, and what enables us to know that we are turning around. You know, actually, of course, a person could notice from hearing and from visual, but the main thing that really enables us to know that we're turning around is the receptors inside the inner ear. And so what I know is that you are in a kinesthetic state somewhat in taking the information in, and if you were in a visual mode, it's possible completely to be sensing that you're over here, seeing yourself, feeling that. Your strategy involved turning self around to
Even though you didn't-
notice what was left and what was right.
Physically, you were still looking forward, and what you would do is turn around so that you would know. I mean, this is really something I'm up against. It's a stuck thing.
Okay, so sometimes
then when you're saying,
what I do-
okay, and it's always.
Well, that's okay, Penny. That's a strategy that you have of understanding. That's an excellent strategy. Rather than turning around, what I do, like if I was just looking at you right now, I just like straight away go to, you're yes like that. I just go straight away like that.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
And actually, I see myself being you, right?
I still do this right. Make sure. And I go right, and I'll just do this, because I had to remind myself for so long they're right ones.
Yes.
I do. I go like this.
Yeah.
Just make her
So, or
yes, Catholic.
God, Penny. Penny's making the sign of the cross. All right.
turn right, and start this.
Okay, so there are strategies actually. It's possible completely to be with the person totally without having to do anything necessarily. But I noticed that if you were talking about left and right, I quite possibly would be just doing this. I would be seeing left and right, and seeing myself this way with you. Okay. All right. Anything else? Come on, there must be something. You have a look.
Would you define submodalities?
Okay.
The word.
Submodality. Okay, modality is the sense itself. Okay, and a submodality is a meta category of a range of things that a classification of distinction in that sense. So, for instance, colour is a submodality of the visual system, okay? And the colour yellow is a submodality of the visual system. Colour is a submodality, whether it's green, yellow, blue, that's the colour is the meta category, okay? So that's a submodality. Colour is a submodality. What is another submodality of the visual system?
A visual?
If I said something is 5 feet tall or 6 feet tall, what's the submodality?
Height?
Height, and what is height a submodality of?
Shoot. I can't call it.
The visual system.
Oh, I was trying to do the other.
No, height. We usually tell somebody's height through the visual system.
I was thinking, what's the other one? I can't call it.
Yes, you see, of course, everything feeds into the vestibular. Everything feeds into the vestibular sense, right? However, the major way we tell height is through the visual system. So, height is a submodality of the visual system. Okay. So, if someone was 6 feet, or someone was 8 feet, or something was 50 feet, in height. Mostly you would know that's a visual submodality. Height is. Okay, so what about distance?
Distance. That's kinesthetic, vestibular.
It's also again visual because mostly we tell distance by looking and saying, oh yes, that's about 200 yards away, and we tell it kind of by visual.
Moving the distance, we're talking about seeing the distance.
Yeah, mostly people are, when they're talking about distance, it's a visual submodality. All right, what is tonality? So if somebody has a rough tone, a gruff tone, yes, it's a submodality. Tone is a submodality of the auditory system.
Okay, that helps.
All right, what is orientation? Orientation in relation to something else.
Visual?
Vestibular. Okay, so orientation is a vestibular submodality. What about direction?
Would it be vestibular?
You need to go back, or you need to go to the side. Yes, vestibular. Okay, direction is vestibular. You need to go forward or back or up or down. That's vestibular. Okay, so direction is a submodality of the vestibular system. Okay. If I said you need to go up, what is that?
Vestibular.
Yes. And what is this category, the submodality category actually? Direction.
Direction.
Okay. What about if I said the flowers are by the vase? Or
It's location.
Right.
Location.
okay, so it's a vestibular submodality. Specifically, the submodality is what?
Orientation.
Excellent. Okay.
Orientation is the submodality
of the vestibular system.
Of what?
Vestibular. So
have this listed, do we, like this?
yes. Oh yes. Yes,
And we
absolutely.
need to know those things. Those are useful in listening to the words that people are using, or to detect their which
They are useful in as much as they enable us to know the distinctions of how the nervous system, the body is being used, and to what degree is this helpful. If someone were not visualizing themselves doing a backflip, I'd say that's very important. On a trampoline, if they were going to do a backflip, and I noticed that the person wasn't visualizing themselves doing a backflip, that would be something I would really, have the person do.
That mean if they were if they were talking about doing a visual backflip and they're doing this, and they're going to get a chance of.
Okay, what I know is if Richard's eyes went up to the right, what I knew was just in that moment was that Richard was visually constructing. So it's possible for the person never to have seen before someone doing a backflip, but I doubt it. If someone's going to be doing a backflip, they've probably seen someone. So it's possible that I would have this person remember seeing someone do a backflip.
Would it be necessary then for them to do a visual construct?
To be in visual memory. However, they may construct themselves doing it, right? And so then you would see that in visual construct, right?
So the other day I was speaking with you about a client I'm having a little bit of difficulty with, and what I determined from him was that he was primarily kinesthetic and auditory. He used virtually no visual predicates. And the thing that was interesting, this is what I don't understand the relationship, is this guy's a photographer, and a very good one, and does these art photographs as well as just like portraits. And so he's a real artist with his photography. So what's the relationship there? You would think that a person, I would think, not knowing any more about it, that a person who's auditory and kinesthetic wouldn't be ordinarily in the photography.
Okay. Well, the first thing is this person accessing information from vision? This person might not be exiting. When you're hearing the person talk about going and doing, and we need to sit down and discuss and talk out, what we sense, the way things are going to be designed. So as you're noticing that the person's exiting in auditory and kinesthetic, however, you notice that I'm holding my eyebrows up whilst I'm talking. So you know that I am accessing information from vision. If the person's talking very quick about what they need to do, or you notice that the person's voice is a little bit higher, volume shifts a little shorter.
This person speaks very low and slow.
So then you know the person's a much more kinesthetic person.
Yeah.
Quite possibly, you'll notice that the pictures that they take, there's quite a bit of auditory things happening in the picture. There may be much more things, in fact, mid-range in his photography, and lower down a little bit more in the photograph, somewhat, possibly. There's other ways that you can see in the photographs even that he's possibly kinesthetic and auditory. Yeah.
So
the one thing is, though, I would say, Richard, in getting through to him, quite possibly that you are in need of using his auditory kinesthetic system. However, I would say he's in need of exiting into the visual system, possibly to understand the cost of things, maybe.
Mm-hmm. So the thing that I found interesting and that I don't quite grasp there is if he's using these predicates as his favorite systems, then how is it that he functions in his income-producing activities as a in a visual realm.
Because all of us, we are using all of our senses. It depends on how we're using it. This photographer might quite possibly be accessing the visual system underneath. Somebody who's accessing the visual system underneath, like the black Hispanic population, ethnocentric group, tend to be much more auditory, kinesthetic. And they are using the visual system. The visual system is kind of a little bit below. They are using it, of course, and they need to be quite relaxed somewhat to be using it more, right? But what comes naturally to them is more kinesthetic, auditory, because the propensity out there in their culture is to be using the auditory, kinesthetic system a little more. They are still using the visual system.
I heard you make a statement once that attorneys tend to be more visual than auditory.
Visual and auditory, right.
I mean, and then you would you also think that someone in a visual field like myself, which deal with visual things.
Richard's very visual, isn't he? Incredibly. Look at Richard right now. We know he's unbelievably visual. You see, because all the time Richard's talking to me, his eyebrows are kind of raised like this. And the visual system is very important. Of course, he would notice this person was not very visual. and even, sometimes it would be a little sticky, sometimes maybe even, as a result.
And very perplexing, because here this guy makes his living out of presenting visual material.
Yes. Okay, so the main thing here is that it's possible for someone, you are here listening to them and they're not exiting in the visual system. They're not seeing clearly a perspective or getting a frame of reference. All of those words are visual, exiting this way. They're exiting in going and doing and getting and talking and discussing and mentioning and admitting. Okay, that in kinesthetic and auditory. However, it's possible that the person's exiting in these senses, but you notice that they're lifting their eyebrows up whilst they're talking. So as you know, they're accessing information from the visual system.
I do see him doing this a lot.
Okay, so he's visually constructing in his auditory memory. So he's visually constructing an auditory memory, right?
What did you say that when people pull in here, so are there something about all? Oh yeah, I remember you telling us that.
Yes, if the corrugator supercilium muscles that furrow the brow, okay, mostly this is when somebody's kind of, like this.
Libby is a living proof here.
It's closing down an auditory external.
Auditory external.
Yes. This has been a strategy that's helped Libby quite a bit in life. Quite possibly she was with people at some points in her life that were speaking stuff that was just like, and the way she dealt with it was to close it out, auditory external, yes. And so, so she has a strategy of being able to do that. However, sometimes it lends itself then to concentrating. The person needs to close out auditory external this way. And so as a result, actually, the more tension you see in the face, right, sometimes it's possible that it's unnecessary. And I think that when you look into a sage's face, you'll notice that this person's face is very relaxed. You can look into someone's face who's 80, in this way, and they'll look about in their 20s still, So I think it's a good idea really to have a relaxed face always. I noticed actually one day I looked across the room and I think it was Steve, some business consultants that Penny brought into the business to talk about things. And when I looked across the room and here was these two business consultants and they each were sort of saying something about something, and I noticed that every now and then Bruce was looking at Penny. And I noticed that Penny had her brow furrowed a little, right? And this was perturbing Bruce, and I knew that it was Penny's way of concentrating, focusing in on something, right? However, Bruce was looking at Penny and thinking, oh my God, I think I've said something that hasn't gone down very well. So sometimes we do give people this message actually, as a result of furrowing the brow a little. when truly it's the person's kind of concentrating in on something.
David, there's a student, my son has a classmate, he's had for several years and he's outgrowing this a little bit, but my son does this imitation of what he does, and then I'm going to try to imitate it, and it's a pretty unusual facial thing that he does. And Justin says it's when he's excited, like it's good, he's happy, it's something really good for him. It's saliva, he kind of swallows, and then he does his hands in his mouth and his tongue goes. They know that he's going to turn around, because when he gets excited, he closes his eyes real tight and goes. And he makes his balls and does his hands.
Okay, so now.
What does that mean?
Oh, okay. That's kneading. It's like when the cat, actually you'll see the cat when the cat's really kind of in bliss. Okay, and it's like you'll see the cat kind of doing that. Okay, it's actually a kneading. When you were getting milk from mum, you also had to actually do rooting kind of action like this to get the nutrients, and so then that rooting action, which is instinctual, all animals do this kind of a rooting kind of act. What else? It's a rooting, and it's also kind of it's a feeling of nurturing.
It's a self-pleasure.
Yes.
Yeah, just like
kneading. A kneading.
He's modifying it just a little bit, but he still does it.
So actually, sometimes people have a little bit of cloth or something, and that's or sometimes somebody they might have a silk or something, and they might always be like putting their tongue out like this, feeling it and putting their tongue out. I mean, we go back, in fact, to things that we did when we were small, in the way that Michaela does things.
She's had since she was a baby in the crib with her. And it's kind of a silky satin blanket. And she can be just being a normal 8-year-old kid, loud, doing her stuff. And if she picks up that blanket, it's like she'll pick it up and all of a sudden she'll go. And she'll just do that for about 2 minutes. And you just look over at her, it's like everything is like about a 6-month-old baby. And then she'll just drop it and start playing again. It's like
I went to see my stepdaughter in the hospital because she had just given birth, and we went to see her and the baby, and she was sleeping when we walked in, and she had the satin from the blanket in her hand and her thumb in her mouth.
Yes.
She had just given birth.
Yes. And she had just given birth. Yes, okay, so she really was, wow. Yes, her own, that's right. Yes, that's quite good.
Something your thumb, your
Doesn't matter. I see my mother sometimes suck a thumb.
It's involving coping through satiation rather than arousal or fantasy. It's actually a coping mechanism of feeling satiated. So all of this act actually that Tanya went through just then is actually about satiation as a way of coping, rather than arousal, like getting real excited about something, or being able to totally fantasize, imagination. So those 3 ways are the major ways that people cope: through satiation, through fantasy, and through using the arousal. Okay. So
Isn't there a type of coping that's you seem like there's another one that you mentioned. Was it? Those 3?
there may be others, but when I've really thought about it,
Those are the main
they are the 3 that I've kind of
Okay.
have thought about. Yeah. Okay. What? Something else?
You mentioned a second ago on orientation. Is there a crossover in some of these modalities? Because when you mentioned to Tanya orientation, if it's orientation within self, I can understand the stimuli. But you were doing this, like orientation of this object, external object, to this object.
Yes.
That's definitely visual.
No.
Because you're visually orientated.
Yes, but however, the understanding that this is by the side of something else, right, is involving my ability for spatial orientation, and all words which are qualifying the relationship of the noun to something else generally is a word which is using the vestibular system.
So
when I would say that this is, behind the glass, okay, behind is a word of orientation, is a vestibular word. What would enable me to know, in fact, that something is in front or something is behind something else is the vestibular system. Or beside.
But your
or up
visual.
on top, or down below, or inside, or it's out, or it's on top. All of those prepositions and predicates that are used are vestibular. They're all stating orientation.
Even though you're seeing it, the fact of it being beside or behind or in front makes it vestibular.
Yes.
Okay.
Because let's say that you are hearing a sound coming from behind you. You see, the auditory system is feeding into the vestibular system. All senses feed into the vestibular system.
I see.
Okay?
The visual is more or less
So you might hear a sound that's coming from behind you or to the side. And the vestibular system is placing that sound in the head.
So the visual monitor is a conductor.
Yes, so you can become so skillful, in fact, even that you can be projecting your voice to a specific location that draws a person more into their kinesthetic motor sequencing. Like that's what as I've been talking to you, I've been projecting my voice over to your right-hand side, bottom right-hand side here. Right, mostly I've been projecting my voice there. So this is spatially being accessed in your head there as well.
What is this?
When someone would raise their right... Yes, okay, so I'll tell you what that is. When you raise your left eyebrow and you lower your right eyebrow, when you raise your left eyebrow, you're accessing visual memory.
It's always left.
Yes, right. Yes, right. Okay. So what David's doing is he's accessing visual memory, and the muscle movements, the contraction of the right eye is closing down whilst the left eyebrow is lifting up. The right eye closing down is that he is going into motor sequencing. Right? Motor sequencing, yes. Because this eye, okay, is involved in construction. The right side of the body is involved in construction. Okay, so... Exactly. Those two things.
I see.
Okay. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Did you hear that?
Okay, this next piece that we're going to do is called is about our eyes. I won't share with you what it's called because it'll be giving it away actually what the eyes are involved in doing. But anyway, listen carefully so that you are understanding what to do now, because you're going to break up into groups of 2. What I'm going to have you imagine is that there's a band. And this is important that you get these instructions, and for the people that are listening into the tape, that you imagine that you have a band around your head, and that attached to that band, fixed, is a probe coming out from the front of the band, in front of the head, with a tiny little disc on it. Fixed, so that this disc is fixed more or less to your head. So no matter then wherever you would turn your head, alright, this disc always would be fixed to the head. And the reason why I'm asking you to imagine that this band and this probe and this disc is situated as such is that it'll help you, if you imagine this, to be able to see if there's a way to keep your eyes still inside your head whilst you move your head. Okay? Yes. Okay, so now what I'm going to have you do is you're going to get into groups of 2, and each of you will try this. A will imagine that you have the band on your head with this disc out in front. B will be watching A as A turns his or her head from side to side, and B is going to be watching what the eyes are doing when this person turns their head. A will do this slowly at first and then do it fast. And another thing is I want A to tune into the sensation that's occurring in the back of the neck, and especially right up in where the atlas is. Maybe you'll feel something, and it's quite possible that you may even hear something happening inside your neck whilst you do this. So each of you will be A and each of you will be B. Take a few moments now to do this with a partner, and then we'll do something more. Alright. Now, what is it that you observed while you were doing that? Who would like to share with us what you saw?
The eyes were going like this.
Right. Okay, so what specifically were the eyes doing? As the person was turning their head, they were jerking?
Small incremental movements.
Right.
Like leading, his eye would lead ahead of his head.
Excellent. Excellent. Ken really was observant. Did anybody else see this too? Yes? Yes, that it's leading. Right. In other words, whilst the person was trying to hold their eyes still and moving their head, what she noticed was that the eyes were still yet. There was tiny little facades of the eyes. In other words, the eyes were moving before the head was moving. That's true. That is the natural state of things.
What happens when the eyes drag after the head?
The person's actually a little bit in a stuck state, actually. If you notice that a person's getting up out of a chair and they're more or less looking straight ahead, you can know there's something going on. The person's a little stuck with something. You know, when I'm watching somebody moving around, I can tell immediately if they're kind of feeling stuck about something just by noticing what's occurring with their eyes. The person who's walking up a set of stairs, you know, they're leading with their eyes. Our eyes lead our behaviour. Our eyes lead our behaviour. It's possible to override this reflex like you were trying to do then, right?
Right.
What did some of you sense? Did you sense something? Did you hear something inside the back of your neck?
I was crinkling sounds.
Okay, crinkling sounds, excellent. Popping sound, crinkling sound, good. Popping.
I felt
Yes.
a lot of tingling sensation.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, you were overriding this reflex, and the ability, this natural reflex of the eyes leading our behaviour, which in the higher, primates, of course, a rabbit, there's much more, neck, head movement, somewhat that's controlling reflexes in the body. Our eyes very much are involved in this, quite incredibly. So whenever there's inhibition, it's always nerve to nerve impulses, not nerve to muscle. All inhibition is involving nerve to nerve impulses, not nerve to muscle impulses. And the nerve to nerve impulses involving inhibition are involving quite to some degree GABA and other neurotransmitters which inhibit. GABA has a major chloride component to it, which is negative. These neurotransmitters which are inhibiting, many of them are also vasoconstrict. So what was happening, you could imagine that your brain, being this mass, was involved in inhibiting a reflex. And in order for it to be able to do this, to override that natural reflex of your eyes leading the behaviour, there was quite a bit of nerve-to-nerve impulses occurring. And as a result, the brain slightly vasoconstricted. And this caused like a popping sensation happening that you could hear in your atlas. And also the crinkling that you could hear also was, this inhibition was causing that crinkling to occur as well. Now this time around, what I'd like you to do, alright, is to, as you are there right now, you can just check out to see this, right, you feel this yourself. What I'd like you to do now is to imagine that you're going to completely be allowing your eyes totally to lead the movement of the head. And this time around, what I want you to do is to move your head from side to side, okay, looking first, alright, like that. And to do it fast and to feel the ease and feel the difference between the two. Do that now and sense the ease with which it occurs when you are naturally allowing your eyes to lead the behaviour. Okay, this is the natural state. Right. Some of you, if you've woken up in the morning and you've had a stiff neck or something like that, most people wrick their necks actually in sleep. And the major cause of wrick necks is that when somebody is unable to face something, there's a couple of things going on, and the person's sort of really in a bit of a quandary as to what to do about this. Sometimes as they're sleeping, the person's leaving their head, like if they're laying on the right side of their head, okay, and they turn over to the left, they're turning with their shoulder and leaving their head still on the pillow. The person's kind of in a stuck state with something, going through something whilst they dream and sleep. The head stays on the pillow. It'll be like me turning. I'm going to show you now like this, and then I'll describe it for the people on the tape. It'll be like, turning like that, or if I was like that and sleeping like that, it'll be like me turning like that, right? Okay, so what I basically did was turn my body, and my head was more or less stayed stationary on the pillow. This is the major cause of rigged necks. And so just telling your dreamer, that piece of you that really looks after you, that's always looking after you, that they'll make sure that you're always leading with your eyes and leading with your head and then turning your shoulder. This is going with the reflexes of the body. So in everything that you do, that's a good idea to know that your eyes are leading your behaviour. Jenny?
I have two questions. When I do it fast like that, every now and then I hear her talking.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, okay. So the other thing I just wanted to share with people, and also maybe a little more data, is I've been hearing this talk and knowing this about eyes-leading behavior for years. And the other night when we took Margie to the swimming pool,
Margie's a client that we've been working with.
Yeah, the main thing that seemed like it was the most beneficial coaching was for David. You kept saying one specific sentence. You kept saying, remember, you kept saying, Margie.
I said, Margie, look where you're going.
Look where you're going in life. And
yes.
As long as she could look straight ahead as we were in the pool, she would begin to get some contralateral movement. But the minute she took her eyes off of the other end of the swimming pool, I mean, she was just, her head would like this, and her arms went flaccid, and she would just start to roll over. We have to catch her in the pool, but like if we could bring her back and she could look, she could start. Because she's working with so much that she's really working with a lot in there, that it was so obvious to see it. How the minute that she was focused, her energy was had tone.
Yes.
So, because that was so phenomenal for me to see that.
Some of you yesterday, I noticed, was taking your mind off the task, actually. Somebody, like I might share something with you from the ground, and sometimes you actually were taking your mind off the task to actually look as if you were picking up more information as a result of looking more than what you could with your ears as a result of somebody's talking. Good idea to make sure that you are really keeping your eyes on the task at hand, and that you're going to keep this task in your mind's eye until it's finished before you entertain another task in your mind's eye. Otherwise, this looking away is creating a degree of distraction too sometimes, right? And you'll notice kids especially, right? They've noticed everything. Right, somebody could be in a restaurant and they have noticed so-and-so across the road has done something, and so-and-so's wearing something that's like, a button's missing off it. I mean, they've just noticed everything because they're all over the place, right? All over the place. And little by little, as we become adults, we learn to be able to concentrate, focus in on something. And so when we're focused in on something, you'll notice a person's more or less, the accessing cues are minimalised, okay? When you see a lot of accessing cues, a person's looking all over the place and doing everything, like moving their feet, and like this is quite a degree of dissociation and distraction. So when you have the ability truly to focus in on something, Like sometimes I'll use a candle. I often use a candle during my sessions, because if I notice that there's real need for a person to be more integrated, then I'll ask them, for us to look at the candle and speak to the flame. Allow the flame to symbolically be transforming all that there would be a wish for, in transforming. Okay. Alright, okay, so now this next thing that we're going to be doing is basic reframing. And you are going to reframe something for somebody, okay? Each of us are going to have the opportunity to do this. Reframing, I think, is on page 69 of the Practitioner's Manual. Excuse me, the Technician's Manual. No, the Practitioner's Manual. It's page 69 of the Practitioner's Manual.
Reframing.
Yeah.
Chapter 7.
So basically, reframing really is the ability to turn SH1T, into roses. The formal definition is the ability to build a system inside of a person, using their internal dialogue to communicate with their unconscious parts. It deals with the positive intention behind the behaviour. So, for example, you could find a positive comment to make about the following statements. I might say, I've been alone for the last 8 months, having to take total responsibility for myself. How could you reframe that? When you reframe this, you're wrapping a context around this that provides meaning, for what was said.
I've myself for the last 6 months.
Well, how could you reframe that?
Gosh, it's been great being on my own.
What a wonderful thing it is that you've had the ability to be alone, and that you've been looking after self. What a wonderful thing. You could that would be reframing that. What about somebody who says, "Oh, I don't feel anything.
I'm pain-free."
Oh, excellent. What a wonderful thing that you're unable to feel some of the crap that's out there.
I'm so full of emotions.
Okay, that would be good.
You reached it.
Okay, what about it? Oh, dear, I can't accept responsibility.
Seems like you're carefree these days.
Excellent. All right, what about someone who says, I can't change, I don't want to change.
Must be Louise more.
You really know what you want.
Okay, well, actually, here's what I might say to that. I might say, what a wonderful thing it is that there's something quite permanent about us. And that's true. In fact, something, I think people sometimes polarise with this word change. Mark had the word change just then, right? I embedded it. And then I might say, something, truly, it's something that's actually enfolded and is enfolding and unfolding from within us. And so that's true, possibly, that we're really not changing, but simply, that this is unfolding from within us. So, you've reframed it for somebody. Okay, good idea to make